Now on KGW News, demonstrators take over a Portland bridge as the nation marks 5 years since the death of George Floyd. Plus, the United States Coast Guard makes what it calls a heartbreaking decision in the search for a missing swimmer off the Washington coast. And in the face of budget cuts, one eviction services program is on the chopping block. We hear from the group running the project on why they say they're needed to prevent evictions. What an incredible start to the holiday weekend. Sunny skies and warm temperatures across the metro area. Here's a live look at City Fair along the waterfront from our Rose City Sky Camera. Thanks so much for joining us on this special edition of KGW News. I'm John Adams. Meteorologist Joe Ranieri along with us tonight to let us know how the rest of the weekend's going to look, Joe.
Fantastic. And I'm trying to figure out what to do for my break. I was wondering if you want to go grab a burger and go on the Ferris wheel here about
yes.
20, 25 minutes.
Yes.
Let's do it. And my point being, it's going to be a gorgeous night. And not just that, it's going to be a gorgeous weekend. There's one little hiccup that comes Monday morning. I'll get to that in a little bit. But I want to go out to the Oregon coast right now where we're looking at a temperature of 56 degrees in downtown Portland. We topped out at 80 degrees earlier this afternoon from our Pioneer Park building camera, 79 degrees at this hour. And we're going to be looking at very pleasant conditions heading into tomorrow. There'll be more of an onshore flow, so expect to see a little bit more of the cloud cover. It's kind of out there moving in through parts of southern Oregon right now. But again, we're not going to be really impacted by it in terms of precipitation. We will see cooler temperatures by a few degrees heading into tomorrow. So here we are. A little afternoon, we can kind of see some widespread clouds over the Cascades, the foothills of the mountains. But by late tomorrow night and into Monday morning, some showers will start to filter in. But rainfall amounts, John, are going to be very light. It's not going to be enough where you got to change any of your plans for Memorial Day. But again, we are going to be looking at a big warm up heading into the last week of May. I'll talk more about that in just a few minutes.
All right, Joe, thank you. We'll see you then. We have an update tonight on a shooting incident near a Southwest Portland preschool that happened earlier this month. Portland police say the man shot by a security guard identified as 32-year-old Manuel Garza has died of his injuries. The guard was employed by the Gann preschool. The school told police the guard was threatening and assaulted in a nearby parking lot, and he defended himself with his firearm. The Bureau's homicide unit will now take over the investigation.
One thing we want today is we want some peace. What do we want? Peace. And what do we want it? Now.
Demonstrators gathered and marched through Portland today to remember George Floyd. Now, tomorrow marks 5 years since he was murdered by a police officer in Minneapolis, which started racial justice rallies across the country, including more than 100 consecutive nights of protests here in Portland. Here's Kylie Boshi.
Demonstrators have many of the same demands today that they had 5 years ago. They're calling for police accountability, racial justice, and the hope no one forgets George Floyd. Protesters marched peacefully through the streets of Portland. Their message?
Whose lives matter? Black lives matter! Whose lives matter? Black lives matter!
It's been 5 years since George Floyd was murdered, and to see folks still come out in support for him and still demanding change, it's a beautiful thing.
Demonstrators hope to reignite conversation about racial justice and accountability.
This is the time. There's too much chaos and division and violence happening in our country right now, and it's time for more bridges.
The rally comes 5 years after Minneapolis police killed George Floyd.
No justice, no peace.
His murder set off protests and riots across the country.
Regardless of color, regardless of ideology, there was a common recognition that we needed to address our history and the violence and oppression of black and brown bodies.
For more than 100 consecutive nights, people in Portland gathered and marched to protest police policies and call for racial justice. At times, they clashed with police and federal agents sent to Portland to quell the demonstrations. In June of 2020, thousands of demonstrators laid down on the Burnside Bridge in a powerful tribute to George Floyd. On Saturday, demonstrators revisited the iconic moment at the very same location. They stood in a circle, silent, for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. The same amount of time police knelt on George Floyd's neck, leading to his death.
George Floyd! Say his name! George Floyd!
In addition to police reform, demonstrators called on local leaders and businesses to create greater opportunities for Portland's black community. Kyle Aboshi, KGW News.
An alert now for people in South Salem. There's a power outage affecting more than 10,000 Portland General Electric customers. The cause is still under investigation. PGE says it expects the outage to last until around 8:30 tonight. The company also says there are also several traffic lights out in the area because of the outage, and they want to remind people to treat blinking lights as a four-way stop. The U.S. Coast Guard has suspended its search for a missing 15-year-old boy off the coast of Long Beach. The teen was swimming with two adults before sunset on Friday when they ran into some sort of trouble in the water about 100 yards from shore. Local crews on jet skis rescued both adults, but the 15-year-old has not been found. A Coast Guard helicopter from Astoria and a boat from Cape Disappointment continued the search for the 15-year-old before suspending rescue efforts at around 12:30 Saturday morning. A representative from the Coast Guard we spoke with earlier today explained the dangers you can encounter on the coast this time of year.
You know, we have beautiful coast here in Washington and Oregon. Make sure you know about the currents and the waves. Those can really pull you out pretty fast. And you just want to always be ready and prepared to deal with that sort of thing.
Crews had to battle tough conditions during the rescue efforts, including intense waves, strong tides, and water temperatures in the mid-50s. We have a couple special election updates on bond measures that were proposed to voters in our region. It appears that people in the Tigard-Tualatin School District have passed a bond proposal to raise more than $400 million for the district. 52.7% of people voted in favor, and the district says there are a relatively small number of ballots left to count. The funds would go toward replacing a middle school, renovating elementary schools, and overall upgrades. Mount Hood Community College is declaring victory in its bond measure to raise $136 million. A much more narrow win. The yeses have it by about 131 votes. The Oregonian reports that number is outside the 0.2% margin that triggers an automatic recount. In a statement, the college says it will begin the bond implementation process in the coming months. And in Forest Grove, it looks like voters have rejected a $30 million bond to build a new police facility. The noes are ahead by nearly 200 votes. Ballots are still being received and counted. We'll keep an eye out for the final numbers. A reminder, you can check for real-time updates anytime on KGW.com and on our KGW mobile app. Councils and commissions across the Portland metro area continue to work on their budgets for the upcoming fiscal year. Leaders in Multnomah County propose various cuts to fill a $77 million shortfall. That includes getting rid of a program that provided legal services to people facing eviction. Alma McCarty spoke to the executive director of the Common Law Center about what's at stake.
We need to keep the people that are in housing housed.
When facing eviction, Cameron Graham found many people didn't know what to do or just couldn't get the help.
It was upward of 85% of them weren't able to get an attorney or get any sort of legal advice before court. There just simply aren't enough resources for everybody.
So in response, the Commons Law Center started a mobile legal clinic, the Tenant Eviction Defense Program, working with tenants right outside the courthouse as they wait for their first appearance.
So anything from payment plans to setting trials, stipulated agreements, whatever the client wants. But our main focus is at helping people avoid eviction or facing future eviction.
The program, funded by Multnomah County, is on track to prevent just over 1,400 evictions by the end of next month. But after only a year, their funding could be pulled.
The $580,000 completely funds our tenant eviction programs. So if we lose this funding, we lose the tenant eviction program.
Graham said as much during a budget hearing earlier this week.
The cost for us to help one person avoid eviction is $396 per person, not per hour. Compare that to the $1,832 for the cost of a basic shelter bed with no support services.
Chair Jessica Vega Peterson responding to the proposed cuts by stating, in part, there is a likely and real chance that the Eviction Prevention Legal Services will receive additional resources in the budget we adopt in June. She went on to say, with significant decreases in emergency rent assistance, we will need to move to preventing evictions before the court process as much as possible. Alma McCarty, KGW News.
Well, it's worth mentioning that at this point in the budget process, none of those decisions are final. Over the next 3 weeks, Multnomah County commissioners will be hearing from the community on proposed reductions. A vote on the final budget's set to take place on June 12th. Well, in other news, even among Portland's pinball competitions, this one stands among the others. At Lentz Pinball this weekend is the Oregon Solid State Pinball Championship. Now, these machines were made between 1979 and 1990, making this event an immersive museum experience of this era of pinball. There were more than 20 available to play, with competitors coming from across the country to take part. For one of them, it was an extra special moment.
I got really sick about 2 years ago, and I couldn't feel my body from like the chest down, and I didn't think I was ever going to be able to play again after doing 400 plus tournaments, and it was kind of heartbreaking. And last night to come out for one of my first tournaments in a long time, it felt really good to actually come out and win it.
Well, the championship wraps up tomorrow evening at 9. Well, still to come here on the show, scientists say climate change poses a grave threat to thousands of species of animals. What needs to be done to protect wildlife? And from a prison cell to the governor's desk, a new state law in Washington that's the result of an idea from a former inmate. An Oregon state scientist says climate change is leading to an existential crisis for Earth's animals. Professor William Ripple and a team of researchers analyzed data sets which show climate change is threatening 3,500 species, from blue whales to pandas and elephants. They say climate change can lead to extreme events like heat waves, wildfires, and droughts, and in turn lead to mass mortality events for animals. A heat dome in 2021 led to the die-off of billions of invertebrates and like mussels, clams, and crabs right here in the Pacific Northwest. They say events like that show how vulnerable wild animals can be to the changing climate and how important it is to study those effects.
People are often aware of what's going on in their area, but if we could have a database where as these die-offs are happening, they're entered into the database so that we have a broad spectrum understanding of what's going on, that would be also very helpful.
They say reducing greenhouse gas emissions and protecting ecosystems which help absorb CO2 are the best steps to protect wildlife. Well, up in Washington, the idea for a newly signed law came from a former state inmate. Another convict then helped get the bill passed. Drew Mickelson spoke to the former inmates about why the law needed to be changed.
The new law changes the size and makeup of the state's Clemency and Pardons Board. The legislators and former inmates behind this new law say it's not about getting people out of prison early. It's about making the system fairer.
I am deeply sorry. I know my actions left a traumatic scar on people's lives.
Today, if an inmate wants to get released or pardoned, they must go before the board's 5 members.
House Bill 1131 expands the Clemency and Pardons Board from 5 members to 10 members.
That system is getting a shakeup, thanks in part to Gerald Hankerson.
I wrote the concepts of this bill when I was incarcerated, thinking about what the process would look like for someone to have done time and the opportunity, the fairness, opportunity to get out.
Hankerson, convicted as an accomplice to murder in the 1980s, came up with the idea in his cell more than 20 years ago.
Clemency should be granted when the sentence no longer serves the interests of justice.
And Waldo Waldron Ramsey, who served almost 30 years for a 1989 Spokane murder, is credited with helping get the bill passed. The law doubles the board's size and must include underrepresented communities, a formerly incarcerated individual with a successful reentry, someone from a faith-based organization, 1 member must have tribal affairs experience, and 2 victims of past crimes. The measure narrowly passed. Critics argue the state should instead focus on those impacted by crime.
Victims should be treated equally to what the accused are. That is absolutely not what's happening in this state right now.
I looked at it like this. At a time that it took a jury to send me to prison, why not a jury help me to come home?
Gerald Hankerson was sentenced to life, but in 2009, then-Governor Chris Gregoire commuted his sentence after learning witnesses to the crime originally lied to police.
Awesome. Round of applause, everybody, for all this being done.
He hopes his work at the Capitol brings relief to others who don't pose a threat.
It opens up the opportunity for others like God blessed me with. That's what's my target. That was my goal.
Well, despite all the changes which go into effect next year, the ultimate decision on release or a pardon remains up to the governor. Memorial Day weekend is the unofficial start to summer, which means people are going to soon be hitting the water, and lifeguards have been brushing up on their skills. Today at Glen Otto Park on the Sandy River, AMR lifeguards drilled a variety of rescue scenarios like rope bag throws, paddleboard entries, kayak rescues, and deep water dives. They say rivers are among the most challenging places to work due to changing conditions that keep them on their toes.
You'll hear us today practicing our yells, swimmer, do you need assistance? You might hear one of us yelling that at you before actually heading in to do a verbal or even a physical check to make sure that you're okay. Our goal is to make sure everyone out here is having a great time, but a safe time more importantly.
Lifeguards are going to be stationed at Glen Otto Park and High Rocks on the Clackamas River in Gladstone daily all the way through September. And Joe, good thing they're going to be out there because people are going to want to be getting in the water soon.
They are, absolutely. We thought we saw a warm day today. Well, going into the later, I know we're kind of jumping ahead of ourselves, but there's a couple of days this upcoming week where we have temperatures 90 or above. A week from today, we could be looking at daytime highs right around the mid-90s. My point being is, yeah, it's the unofficial start summer, but our temperatures are going to be feeling more like late July, early part of August here the next few days. So be prepared for water temperatures. They're very cold. And again, if you're not used to a strong current, you might want to kind of stay out of the water to try to cool off. Unfortunately, we cover these all the time. Temperatures right now are in the low 70s after seeing highs right around 80 degrees. Tonight, mostly cloudy skies. Clouds will start to increase. Overnight lows drop down to the upper 40s to low 50s, but we stay dry, and we stay dry all day tomorrow. So looking at the weather headlines, we stay sunny by tomorrow afternoon. Very nice temperatures, a couple degrees cooler than what we saw earlier today. For Memorial Day, a few showers move in. It's a morning event, and then we go back to sunny skies. Next week, summer-like weather returns. If you like heat, you're really going to like Wednesday and the end of the week as well. We have that ridge of high pressure in place. It'll slowly break down a little bit. What I'm tracking is this upper level low that arrives late tomorrow night, really after midnight, I should say, and into Memorial Day. As it does, we'll start to see those clouds increase, but with a slight chance for some showers. This is tomorrow where it's going to be just a picture-perfect day practically. A few clouds kind of filter in at times throughout the morning, but pretty much dry all day long. Early Monday morning on Memorial Day, we'll see some spotty showers, but rainfall amounts will be very light. Going into the early part of the afternoon, we'll really start to see things improve for you. So average rainfall for the month is about 2.5 inches of rain, and I think we'll be lucky to get 2 inches. In fact, I know we're not going to get 2 inches for the month of May, looking at some long-range models. We'll see the winds pick up a little bit at times tomorrow afternoon on the east side of the state. Parts of the Columbia River Gorge will kind of get breezy as well. But the next 5 days, we'll be looking at temperatures tomorrow in the mid-70s, but take a look at Wednesday. I just updated the 7-day forecast. We're going to be looking at daytime highs flirting with 90, and you're probably thinking, oh, that's going to be a record temperature. No, the record is right around 100 degrees, set back, I think it was 83. So we're not going to touch triple-digit heat, but it is going to get very warm thanks to this ridge of high pressure that's going to be really pushing that warm air from the desert southwest. As it does, our temperatures are going to be soaring. Like I said, we could easily be seeing temperatures by a week from today sitting in the mid-90s, and the concern is it's going to be a 3 or 4 day event. I know I'm getting in my head of myself. I'm kind of excited, though, to talk about the heat, but changes are coming over the next 7 days, and I'll show you that in a second. But the camping forecast, we're going to be spending any time up in the mountains doing a little camping. You're going to be seeing some very pleasant conditions tomorrow. For Memorial Day, it's going to be cooler and damp, but temperatures tomorrow in the low 60s. Come Monday, you'll be sitting at 55 degrees. So tomorrow in the metro area, we'll be kind of seeing some kind of a mix of some clouds and sunshine. Temperature-wise, by midday, we'll be at 64 degrees. Again, by a handful of degrees cooler from what we saw earlier today with a high of 75. 75 tomorrow. Come Memorial Day on Monday, it'll be a light morning showers, but then we warm up again. Close to 80 for Tuesday. Wednesday, close to 90, and then there it is, John, 94 degrees for Saturday, and that 94 degrees will carry over into about the early part of June. So looking at long-range models, again, 7-10 days out, it could be 3-4 day stretch with temperatures 90 or above. So something to pay very close attention to when you're thinking about cooling off. Yeah, water safety is going to be key heading into late this month, early part of June.
Even though you told me that we're going to be hitting 90s, it's still jarring to see it on the 7-day forecast.
It's only May 24th, but yeah, it's going to be a shock to a lot of people, I think.
All right, well, we'll be ready for it as best we can. All right, Joe, thank you. Well, the Portland Timbers trying to turn things around after getting knocked out of the U.S. Open Cup. How they fared against Orlando City after this.
We're focused
What is good, everyone? The Portland Timbers had to quickly turn the page after playing 120 minutes Tuesday and getting knocked out of the U.S. Open Cup. The Timbers traveling across the country to take on Orlando, Portland's third match in 8 days, and we pick it up in the 39th minute. It's scoreless, but Duncan McGuire had enough of that. His first goal of the season, just taking advantage of an opening in the Portland's defense. That's the game winner. Orlando shuts out Portland 1-0. The Timbers winless in their last 4 matches across all competitions. And this loss stings. They dropped from 4th to 6th in the Western Conference. The Timbers home Wednesday to take on the Rapids. The Portland Thorns in Mexico taking on Club America in the 3rd place game of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and it was all Thorns. Pietra Torden, Peyton Linehan, and Olivia Moultrie all finding the back of the net en route to a bronze medal performance in the W Champions Cup. They'll get back to NWSL competition June 7th when they visit Bay FC. The Oregon baseball team was rained out last night in Omaha, postponing their Big Ten tournament game against Nebraska. They got to work bright and early this morning, and it was all Cornhuskers. Lighting up Ducks ace Grayson Grinsell. It was his shortest outing of the season, giving up 8 hits and 6 runs. The Oregon's defense added 4 errors, and Nebraska advances to the conference semifinals, upsetting the Ducks 7-3, snapping Oregon's 11-game win streak. Now it's the waiting game. The NCAA selection show is Monday. Oh, the vibes have been immaculate in Eugene. A packed Jane Sanders Stadium as the Oregon Ducks march through the NCAA tournament after back-to-back walk-off victories. No drama in a dominant performance in Game 2 of their Super Regional matchup against Liberty, cruising to a 13-1 victory, clinching the program's first trip to the Women's College World Series since 2018. It's the program's 7th overall, first under head coach Melissa Lombardi. Games began on Thursday from Oklahoma City. There is a celebration in Eugene. Pretty awesome for those Ducks to take care of business like that and keep it going one step closer to a national championship.
Absolutely. That'll be so fun to watch them play in Oklahoma City. And of course, Oregon baseball, Oregon State baseball.
Yeah, so Oregon baseball for sure will be a top seed. It's just whether or not they'll have the opportunity to host a super regional, but they're pretty much locked in for a regional host site, and it'll be interesting to see how they determine the Beavers. Beavers have been sitting at home waiting to get underway now, not having a conference at this moment. So we'll see how this all plays out. Monday should be pretty spicy, but we have 2 really good teams that have been ranked in the top 10 all year long.
Absolutely. We know you're going to be tracking it, and you are tracking a big-time warm-up in Tiffany.
A big-time warm-up, not so much the next couple of days. We'll be sitting at the mid-70s tomorrow. A few clouds kind of filter in throughout the morning, but basically late afternoon, early part of the evening, we'll see fair skies. Come Memorial Day, the morning, you'll see some light showers under 1/10 of an inch of rain, and that will be it for the month of May. And then we warm up by midday or midweek, close to 90, and we could be looking at temperatures in the mid-90s a week from today. We'll be back here coming up at 11 o'clock.